Somatics for me implies doing, then observing, then staying put and making yourself available to the after effects of this doing with observation. So it's a model of these four: doing, observing, non-doing, and receiving. So essentially what we are trying to do is we are looking at matter, and we are curiously looking at the restlessness within matter, or the unpredictability of matter, and how this restlessness kind of manifests itself. So we are curious about just matter. To just give you a short history of what informs this practice, it comes from my practices in yoga, in dance, Bharatanatyam, and also Vedic chanting. Yoga promises me, the promise of yoga that the way I understand it, yoga promises me sukh. Eventually, that is the promise of yoga, that there will be repose, there will be pleasurable repose. Performance or dance, Bharatanatyam, the promise is that of resonance, of ras, that I will receive ras at the end of it. And Vedic chanting promises me that my body shall, after having produced all these sounds, my body eventually shall become a listening body. So what is common between all these three is that all these three make me the recipient as opposed to the doer. So I receive sukh, I receive ras, and I make my body a listening, receiving body. And it is this that I really appreciate and cherish about embodied practice. And this, to me, is the goal of embodied practice. So the practice that we have devised is in contrast to the way practice, I feel, is viewed today as practice of doing, practice of producing, practice of dispensing. We are producing asanas, we are producing gestures, we are producing sounds, as though it's all about production and nothing about reception. So the somatic practice that I'm offering allows me to sidestep from this cycle of dispensing alone. The findings that we have over from training over the last more than a year actually, is that when I place attention upon matter, which is inherently restless or moving, and the thing is that matter doesn't move in very drastic manners. Matter murmurs. It's like light shimmers. So it's a very subtle movement. And when this attention is placed upon it, and when I become conscious of these murmurings inside my body, or these movement, when I begin to follow movement inside my body very, very consciously, what happens is that the body begins to respond unconsciously. So I am consciously looking at something which is responding unconsciously, beyond my consciousness, so to speak. So there is a gap between my conscious attention and the unconscious response. And I am absorbing those responses. So I'm kind of trying to dwell in that excess between consciousness and something that is beyond consciousness. There's an excess there, and it's a very exciting and a very live, a very sapful and a very reposeful gap. And that is what we are looking at. So it is, I keep saying that, the whole practice is about observation and receiving of after effects. So our practice is about, we farm after effects. We are farmers of after effects, because the after effect is like a murmur. It's like a subtle sensory response, and that's what I'm trying to register and absorb. Considering that observation is key to this practice, But it's not just observation, it's observation of having done. I do and I observe. So it's a doing and observation. The same way somebody experiments. You experiment with something and then you make that experiment and then you observe that experiment without superimposing any ideas upon that experiment, without intervening, because you want that matter to reveal its nature, or that chemistry to reveal its nature. So similarly, this whole thing, it's a lab where we are doing and holding our horses back, so to speak, and not superimposing. My medium is the body, so I can look at the body. My discipline allows me to look at the body in a very, in this very mindful but one remove manner. I look at the body, I look at the bones, I look at the fluids, I look at my breath. So that's my discipline that offers me. But there are other disciplines that are better equipped to look at, say, light, to understand the nature of light, or to understand the nature of sound, or to even understand the nature of form, of direction. So this somatic space that we are creating is an invitation to others who are also looking at matter, at the restlessness of matter, with the same curiosity, with the same love for matter, and fascination with matter. So we have films, we have drawings, we have, of course, movement, and it's like, what Paul Klee used to say, something like that: you put your attention to the pencil, and the pencil begins to move automatically on the paper, and the line begins to dream. So it's literally this. The movement begins to dream. The movement has an unconscious dimension to it that automatically it takes you somewhere else and reveals and catapults you into another dimension. And that's the beauty of what we are trying to do with the somatic practice. And where I see this going is based on the findings and the promises. So there's a promise of sukh and repose that my practice offers me, and I'm like extremely excited about inquiring into what kind of creative urge or what kind of creative force comes out of repose, or what is the restlessness within repose. So what is the creative restlessness within repose? Because we have been able to orchestrate really well repose. Every time we do this practice, we end up in this state of repose. And now we are making that a very familiar, we are inscribing, we have been, for the last 6 months in this training, we have been inscribing the memory of repose into our bodies. Now, once repose is part and parcel of my body, how do I create out of it? My hunch is that creativity that comes out of repose has a special kind of an autonomy, and has a special kind of a force and a vitality. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. The other thing is that there is this promise of reconfiguration of the body. We know that I do the practice and I come out, so to speak, renewed. I am reconfigured. And the reconfigurations that we have been seeing are a reconfiguration of a state of, from a state of, say, normal, ordinary comfort to deep comfort, or from anxiety to repose, or from restlessness to absolute stillness, even from pain to not just painlessness but also pleasure. And I really want to kind of fine-tune this better. I hope that as we go along we fine-tune this better as to how to orchestrate movement to reconfigure the material of the body to come into repose, comfort, well-being. So so there are these two visions that I have with this practice. A, of how to create out of repose, and two, how to configure a method, or even how to fine-tune a method of coming into well-being, a well-being which is a state of repose and sukh.